All right, guys, we're going to get started here in just a little bit. I got to share this on my socials, and we will get started. There it is. Over to my account. Okay, so if you guys don't know, my name is Jacob. I obviously am the host of the Major League Podcast here. I'm actually one of the moderators for the Sooners account for Big 12 country. So at Sooners underscore B12C. So definitely go like and follow that one. I'm going to put most of my OU content there. And so welcome in today. We are on day 2 of my Big 12 previews today, and it is kind of an odd cluster of teams here as we got Kansas State and Baylor. When you think about what the two teams have done these most recent years here is Kansas State. The reason I have them so low is because I want to see them be injury free for 1 year, and I don't think they will be. And they don't really have great depth everywhere, but what they do have is a quarterback who's in my second team all conference selections. So when we look at it, we look at everything that's going on. It's Kansas. It's Kansas State. And I can't wait for Kansas State this year, honestly. With Deuce Vaughn and Skylar Thompson being in the same backfield, doing things together. Baylor is a huge, huge question mark for me. I am not a believer in the Baylor Bears for 2021. I think they're a little bit of false gold, and that's why I got them 7th in the conference, and I got Kansas State 6th. And listen, there's a huge thing here for why are we so angled? There we go. All right, so as you guys can see, no cluttery, messed room today. It is the man cave for me. As you can see all my Sooner stuff back here. Yeah, that's the man with the silver shoes. Yeah, that's right. Anyway, so let's hit up Baylor first. And one of the things I really like about Baylor is their linebacking group. Their linebacking group is really, really, really good. And I'm actually a huge fan of what they have there as far as their starters. I'm not sure about what their depth is, but their linebacking group is probably one of the better ones in the conference if we were to just go position group value. And outside of that, I am hard pressed to find something that I'm impressed with Baylor about. I'm not a buyer in their quarterback. I'm not a buyer in their running back. I'm not a buyer in their receiving game. I'm not a buyer in their secondary. I'm not a huge buyer in their defensive line. So the bottom line here for Baylor, losing John Lovett, Williams, Bradley King, and Charlie Brewer, is they're replacing a lot of things that kind of made their team function, right? So the bottom line for Baylor is they should look to get back into the positive for the win-loss, but I don't think they will. I don't think they're going to be close, if we're going to be completely honest here. So for me, it's going to be about it's kind of a mix of Baylor and Texas Tech. They've got good things that they can do. They've got good things they can build on, but what they don't have is just that huge explosion of depth. They don't have a huge explosion explosions of talented players. But what they do have at Baylor, that what you don't see at Kansas and what you don't see at Texas Tech, is they've got a defensive scheme that works. Don't believe me? Go look at what they did against Oklahoma last year. I'm not a big believer in buying that Oklahoma game last year. Oklahoma was on like a 2 or 3 week not playing. They almost didn't play themselves because they had COVID issues in their camp. So it's not a game I want to look at and say, this is the reason why Baylor is going to be good. This is the reason. Finally, Baylor this, Baylor that. I'm not about that. I don't think anything offensively Baylor is going to do this year is going to be any good. I don't think anything really outside of the linebacking group. I don't really see a whole lot of things being good for Baylor this season. They got a lot of developing they need to do on the defensive line. They got some secondary stuff. PFF has them as the secondary as their best defensive unit. I'm not a buyer. I'm not a buyer in it. So for me, if I'm looking at Baylor, let's start on the offensive side of the ball and let's kind of move around through everything. So Jacob Zeno and Jerry Bohanna, that's your quarterback battle. And for me, if I'm Baylor, I look at Jacob Zeno. Because he's got a dominant first name, I'm going to root for him. And because he's got a Dragon Ball Z reference as his last name, he is Zeno is king of all in Dragon Ball Super. So I'm all about it. Let's go Jacob Zeno. He's 6'2", 211. He can move. He's got a cannon for an arm. So for me, it's going to be, can he actually be accurate with what he's doing? And that's going to be the biggest question for Baylor in the quarterback realm. Now, as we move over to the running backs, when we think about the running backs for Baylor, you're not going to see a whole lot of improvement. They brought in Jordan Jenkins in their recruiting class, which was 44th nationally. They've got an offensive tackle in Connor Galvin and a guard in Jacob Gall. Listen, they're going to be pretty decent there on the offensive line. They've got two studs there, or I say studs, two really good targets there. But for me, it's the running back room. There's not a lot there. Jeff Grimes had an EPA per run of negative 0.214, which was 118th. So there's not a lot there for the run game that just is going to wow you. There's not a lot there for Baylor that offensively, because they're breaking in so many new players. They're breaking in it's going to be really hard for Dave Aranda to have a good offense at Baylor for a minute. So they got to get the buy-in. For me, for Baylor, they do have more offensive talent than Kansas. But what separates Baylor from Texas Tech, and I think this is really going to be the battle for 8 and 9. I think this is going to be the battle here between Baylor and Texas Tech. But when you look at Baylor and you compare it to Texas Tech, what Baylor is really good at is defensive scheming. And I think they have some buy-in on it because, listen, Dave Aranda's a dude. Dave Aranda knows how to call defense. And Ron Roberts, he's going to, as soon as they start getting those guys to buy in on it and they start getting guys to get in on this, I think you're going to start seeing Baylor kind of revert a little, start going back a little bit more to those 2014, 2013 looking style of defensive rankings. So for me, if I'm looking at a team, I'm looking at Baylor. It's their defense. They've got the best guy that you could possibly have in a defensive mind. Their top defender is going to be Raleigh Texada, a 5'10" cornerback. He didn't allow a lot of catches in general. Looking at it here, 2, 5. He allowed 18 catches all of last year in all their games. So I think he's going to be fine. I think as far as Baylor, it's going to be relying on the linebackers to stop the run. I think you're going to kind of see what we saw with the Mike Stoops defense. They're going to be gap holders. They're going to be lineman holders on defensive line and let the linebackers do the work. So it's going to look kind of like the 2017 defense is kind of what I'm going to think about for Baylor this year, the 2017 OU defense. Hold the line where they are, have the linebackers go make plays. I think that's going to be the scheme that they do this year. I mean, listen, Jalen Petrie and Terrell Bernard, they're dudes. They can start at almost any other Big 12 team and probably most other college football teams across the nation. So I'm buying in on Baylor being better than Texas Tech. I know that's for some of you, it's like, oh well, that's not really that big of a step. To me, it is, because Texas Tech offensively should still be really good. We talked about how yesterday they have one of the better defensive or one of the better wide receivers probably in the country. So it's going to be interesting to see. I have I don't think I had any Baylor guys in my. I think it was Jalen Petrie was it. I'm pulling that up right now. Let me unzoom from like 150 to normal. I got no one on offense. So for me, I've got I think it's Siki Ika for Baylor on their defensive line. And shockingly, with as much as I love, okay, they're there. They're both first teams, Terrell Bernard and Jalen Petrie. For me, you guys could have something different. For me, those guys are my first team linebackers for the Big 12. And then Treston Ebner, who should have won Returner of the Year, Special Teams Player of the Year last year in the Big 12, but didn't. So I'm going to say he actually is the first team returner. And I think he's the reason that Baylor actually sticks around in some games. They kind of hang around with some teams they shouldn't, with the Kansas States of the world, with the Tech, probably the reason why they beat Texas Tech. Then we look at OSU. They're probably going to give OSU some troubles with them. But again, they're not deep on a lot of levels. They're not a great football team. They're pretty. They would compete in the Pac-12. Let's say that. Outside of USC and Oregon and maybe Arizona State, they probably compete for that third place spot in the Pac-12 with their current construct, because Pac-12 is not really that good. And they're not going to be that good this year coming in. And when you look at the ACC, they're probably playing for fourth place over there. So, I mean, you can see Baylor being at the bottom of the barrel. I think Texas Tech would struggle in both leagues, because both leagues are pretty offensive heavy. Yes, I am wearing a Dragon Ball Z shirt. That's why I made the Zeno reference that I did. So I think Zeno wins the quarterback job. I think Texas Tech is going to lose to Baylor, and I think that's the reason they're in ninth. Sorry, get my order in place here. So I got going from the bottom, Kansas. Obviously, anybody that doesn't put Kansas last, you probably should look at them and go, what? You should question their football sanity. Then I got Texas Tech at 9, and then Baylor at 8. And it's for the reasons I don't trust their offense. I trust more of their defense because of who they have as their head coach, who was the best defensive coordinator in college football when he was a defensive coordinator. And if you want to say it's Brent Venables, more power to you. You got an argument there, but Dave Aranda knows defense. He knows the 4-3 defense. He knows the 4-2-5 defense. He knows what it takes to be a really good defense. And what he's trying to do is, if he can get Baylor, who after Matt Rule left had nothing, if he can get them into a spot to where they have good defense, passable offense, not great, not terrible, passable offense, then what we're going to see out of Baylor is going to be, he's going to find another job. He won't be in the Big 12 very long. So for me, it's Baylor, really good defensive mind as your head coach. Not really much to write home with offensively, maybe just good enough against the bad teams. So that's what I got for Baylor. I got them finishing, where's Baylor? 6-6, 3-6 in the conference. So I have them one game ahead of Texas Tech. No, sorry, I got them 5-7, tied with Texas Tech, but I have them actually beating Texas Tech. But I have Kansas State at 6-6, 3-6. For Kansas State, I also have them having 2 All Big 12 players for first or second team, and I believe they are both second team guys with Skylar Thompson and Akeem. Nope, that's West Virginia. Where's the second guy? And no, I don't have it as Deuce Vaughn. I am not. I am not a buyer in his stock right now. It must be. Oh, Phillip Brooks. So Phillip Brooks is the second team returner. So I've got. So we got. I don't know why they're folded. Oh, because that's a first. I don't. I don't know. I don't know what I got going on here. All right. Oh, that's not what I wanted. And then Baylor. There we go. Okay, so Kansas 0-12, 0-9 in the conference. Texas Tech 5-7, 2-7 in the conference. Baylor just beating Tech 5-7, 2-7 in the conference. And then we go to Kansas State. Kansas State's an interesting team to me because they can finish 6-6 or they can finish 8-4, anywhere in between. So they could even be worse than that. They could be like what they were last year with the injury bug and finish worse than Texas Tech. So there's a lot of things with Kansas that can go right. There's a lot of things with Kansas that can go wrong. And I'm here for it. I'm here for this Kansas team, Kansas State team. They're really good at football as far as the smash mouth, playing consistently, annoy you football. That's what they're good at. That's what they're going to do. So when we think about what Chris Kleiman has coming back, before we get back to what he has coming back, let's talk about the people he lost. He lost Wyatt Hubert on the edge. He lost Briley Moore, a tight end, and he lost Keandre Thomas. So they're not as they're losing some key guys, but they have things coming back that we should watch out for. First of all, they're getting their quarterback back. And their quarterback is Skylar Thompson. He's my second team All Big 12 quarterback. I think the question everybody questioned could he be accurate last year, and he proved that in strides. He was so good before he got hurt. He was actually better than, if I remember looking at the stats, then he was the best quarterback in the conference as far as overall statistics, not just pointing out QBR, quarterback rate, passing grade, offensive grade, whatever you wanted. He had the best I think he had the best completion percentage in the conference. He was up there in yards. He was up there in touchdowns, low interceptions, up there in QB rate, up there in QBR. So Skylar Thompson developed into that quarterback we all kind of were wondering, could he be? Now, the question for him is going to be, can he stay injury free? And that's really going to be the thing for Skylar Thompson because he was a good quarterback. He had a big time throw rate of 8.7%. He was low on the turnover worthy play rate at 3.7%. His average depth of target was 10.8. His PFF overall grade was 80.6, and this was all before he got hurt. So his passing grade his pass grade with a clean pocket was 91.8. So when he had a clean pocket, he was dangerous. So it's not like he was a bad quarterback. He was a really good quarterback that caught a hint of bad luck. Let's call it what it is. He got hurt, and if he would have stayed healthy for the remainder of the year, he would have been one of the best quarterbacks in the Big 12. He probably would have been an all quarterback, but we'll get to that here in a minute. So other guys to watch out for Kansas State is Phillip Brooks. He was your special teams player of the year last year and first team Big 12 returner. I don't think he'll get that this year. I don't think he'll be that good. He'll be that good, but he won't be the Baylor kid, Tristan Ebner. I don't think he'll be that good. But Kansas State's got a pretty decent offensive line. And the biggest weapon is going to be Deuce Vaughn. He should be used like Bijan Robinson should be used. He should get 15. If he gets 15 touches a game, that's too little. He needs to have at minimum, whether it's receiving, kickoff returns, punt returns, or running the football. He needs to have 25 touches, minimum, if Kansas State wants to do better than 6-6. Now, I get it. He's going to get tired. They don't really have a lot of, Deuce Vaughn type depth, but he's going to be good. And the question for me about Deuce Vaughn is, can he be consistent enough to be that good? He was elite out of the backfield as a pass catcher, top 30 in just about everything you can find. Was really good at flare pivot and slant routes. So everything closer to the line of scrimmage, he was really good at. Everything beyond, about 5 yards, he wasn't really great at doing. So anything close, let him go make plays. That's what they did. So you'll probably see a lot of screen, a lot of slants, a lot of things that's going to get him where he's in space. So your top defender is going to be a guy's name that I can't say, so we're just going to call him Doe. He is the cornerback. He's 6 foot, 106. Is that 65? That says 165. He was a 3-star recruit in 2018, but he looks to be their best defensive player. Top 30 as far as coverage grade. Top 30 in yards per cover snap. Forced incompletion rate was top 5. So he's good. He's going to be a good cornerback. He forced an incompletion on 10 to 19-yard routes. He forced 4 incompletions on 20-plus yards routes, only allowed 1 catch in those. Forced an incompletion in the 1 to 9-yard routes. Did not, in all of those routes that I mentioned, he only gave up 1 touchdown. That was a 21-yard touchdown on a 20-plus yarder. And outside of that, that's the only touchdown he gave up all year. So he should be good. He should be he should be that shutdown guy for him. And when we think about Kansas State, we think about the Kansas States of old, let's think about the 2012 Kansas States. We think about the early 2000s Kansas States. Is they had guys on the edge, they had guys on the tackles, they had guys on corner islands, and they just let those guys go play. And they said, go make plays, don't worry about nothing. And so Kansas State defensive interior is going to be Eli Huggins, and then you got a couple outside guys in Khalil Duke and Bronson Massey. So those guys are going to be key returning guys. When you think about the offense, it's Josh Riveras as a guard. We look at Julius Brents on another defensive back from Iowa. He's from Iowa, so hopefully, if you're a Kansas State guy, that's going to be a guy you want to look at. Malik Knowles from your wide receiver spot. So there's just a lot of things you can look at with Kansas State and go, there's a reason they can finish over 500. There's a reason they can contend for the 3rd place spot in the Big 12. But for me, I need to see it. I want to buy into it, but I'm not quite sold on Kansas State. They got a lot of talent. Yes. They're a hard-nosed football team. Yes. Courtney Messingham, the offensive coordinator, is going to run a solid scheme. Joe Klanderman, he's going to run a solid defensive scheme. They're going to force they're going to be a tough team to beat. You can't just walk to Kansas State and say, we're going to beat you today. They're going to make you earn your win, whether you're Texas, Oklahoma State, TCU, Iowa State, Oklahoma, whoever it may be. But this is the second gap of everything that we're looking at. So we're looking at a gap between Kansas and Baylor and Texas Tech. We're looking at a gap from Texas Tech and Baylor to Kansas State and everybody else from the as far as how we're looking at it. But I got them at 6-6. I'm not a huge – I think it's going to be kind of until Skylar Thompson gets going. And unfortunately, they're going to have to figure it out in the first week of October against Oklahoma. The back half of their schedule is kind of rough, but the front half of their Big 12 schedule is where it's at, and where I see them taking what do I have them as far as? Got them 3-6 in the Big 12. They're going to be 0-3 heading into the turn of the second half of the schedule in the Big 12. They should beat Texas Tech. There's your win. So their win should be Texas Tech, Kansas, and Baylor. If they can I think they're good enough to pull an upset on TCU and Texas. I think they can do that. If they're completely healthy and rolling by Texas on November 27th, hey, Texas, watch out. I'm not sold on your team, and it's not really something that you shouldn't be completely sold in on your team either. You should have some worries about the offensive line. You should have a worry about defensive line. We'll get to that. They've got they're going to be a solid, hard-nosed team, and that's what, if you're Kansas State, that's what you're going to hang your hat on. Hey, we challenged Oklahoma. Oklahoma kind of let up, made some bad plays because they were a young team, and we beat them. Then we had the injury bug unlock. And we had the injury bug unlock almost at every position that you could possibly have. And so that's why they fell off the wagon. So if Kansas State can stay healthy, don't be surprised if you see Kansas State at 7-5, 8-4. Don't be surprised if my third place team is TCU. Don't be surprised if they're looking at TCU going, hey, we're going to challenge you for that third spot. But there's a gap here between West Virginia, Oklahoma State, Texas, and Kansas State. There's a gap between them and Baylor, Tech, and Kansas. And it's a sizable gap. I don't think that Baylor, Tech, or Kansas is going to pull an upset on any of those teams. But at the same time, they need to be careful with Kansas State. Texas, Oklahoma State, West Virginia, TCU, Iowa State, and Oklahoma. They need to take Kansas State seriously. This isn't just your normal 6-6 team. This is a team that can go to your house, punch you in the face, and steal your lunch and take whatever they want. Kansas State's going to be a really good football team, and I think that's what, for me, I want to see it. I want to see how good they are. I want to see what they're going to do. And I think it's an incredibly important season for Kansas State, because with the move to a new Big 12 coming up, because Oklahoma and Texas are heading to the SEC, you've got to show out. You've got to be that football team. You've got to show, hey, this is why you want to come to the Big 12. We've got teams like Kansas State. You want to be able to point at Kansas State and say, look how competitive this team is. Look how good this team is. Look at how competitive. Look at what they did to Oklahoma in 2018, 2019, and 2020. Oh, yeah, by the way, that's basically the same team all season for everybody. So that's what you want. If you're Bob Bowlesby, if you're Oklahoma State, if you're TCU, if you're West Virginia, although I think West Virginia's gone. If you're the other 8, if you're the other 7 teams looking at Kansas State, you have to be excited for what they're bringing back. You have to be excited for what's going on in the Little Apple. So for me, it's going to be, can Kansas State show out? Can Kansas State do what they need to do to be better than 6-6? PFF has them their win expectancy at 5.8. I got them at 6, so I got them going to over there. And honestly, if you're Texas, if you're Kansas State, you like hearing that. You like 6 wins, because not only is that a baseline, I have them baseline 6-6. I have them at worst 6-6. So if they can show up, they can play, and they do their jobs, Kansas State could be the 3rd place team in the Big 12 behind Oklahoma and Iowa State. So it's just what Kansas State team shows up. How injured are they, and are they actually that team? Yes, they are that team. And I don't even think it's a question, are they that team? I think they are that team. We just need to see it first. So tomorrow I'm going to have a special guest. His name is Ian Nickel. He's a buddy of mine. We're going to be calling Piedmont football this year for Crossover Radio Sports. So listen in on that if you can. I'm going to be giving it football inside as color guy into what I'm seeing from both teams. I don't really have a bias here, so you're going to get as evenly called game as you can possibly get for for Piedmont. So if you know people from Piedmont, if you know people from any of the other teams that Piedmont plays this year, be sure to share that. Be sure you can, I'll post the stuff on it. You can share that. But with Kansas State and Baylor's going to be competing with Texas Tech for that, that just above Kansas spot. And then there's a huge gap, and I think Kansas State is your bottom at worst, Kansas State. So not just average Kansas State, bottom line, terrible Kansas State, I think is a 6-6 football team. I think that should worry Iowa State. I think that should scare the crap out of Texas. I think that should worry West Virginia. I think that should worry Oklahoma State. And I think that should worry Oklahoma. Listen, we're on a 2-game losing streak, and 2017 wasn't a give-me game. If I remember right, neither was 2018. So it's not it's not just, hey, we can go and walk up and beat Kansas State just because we're Oklahoma. That's not the case at all. We're not that Oklahoma team anymore. But yeah, so 2018 was the blowout. We had to get a last second Rodney Anderson run just to beat him in 2017. 2016 was a hard fought game, 38-17. 2015 was a blowout, 55-0. 2014, they beat us 31-30. 2013 was a battle, 41-31. We lost in 2012, 24-19. So Kansas State is going to give us a challenge as Oklahoma. And it's whether or not Oklahoma shows up. It's whether or not Iowa State doesn't take them lightly. TCU doesn't take them lightly. But listen, if I'm in that clustered of groups that I said, West Virginia, Oklahoma State, Texas, you can't take Iowa State lightly. And if you take Iowa State lightly, you're going to be walking out of that game with a loss. You're going to be looking up and going, oh my gosh, why is it 24-7 right now with 5 minutes left in the fourth quarter? You're going to be looked up and you're going to be shocked because Kansas State is good. Kansas State's a good football team. Baylor is not a good football team, but Baylor can be a 5-7 football team in this league. Baylor's schedule is immensely easier in the non-conference, so that's going to give them confidence. You look at Kansas State's non-conference, their toughest one is going to be Stanford to open the season. So if they can win that, they're going to be set up really, really good for the future here. And I'm just excited to see what they're going to bring to the table. Kansas State is my biggest. See, I've been saying all offseason, Kansas or TCU is the sleeper team. TCU is the team no one's talking about, but we all should. But the team that not one person has brought up to be a complete sleeper, to just wreck things in this league, to be the complete chaos team, that's Kansas State. Kansas State is the chaos team. Kansas State is the team that if you sleep on, again, you're going to be walking out with a loss. I have them at 6-6, and that's just baseline. Guys, that's a baseline for Kansas State because they should go 3-0 heading into Oklahoma State. And listen, if I'm Oklahoma State, I look at that. I look at a 3-0 Kansas State team, and I'm probably peeing down my leg a little bit because, listen, Oklahoma State, you haven't had great success against Kansas State recently. And if I'm Kansas State, I'm looking at that game, licking my chops because if you want to be the second best team in the conference, by the turn of the schedule heading to October 23rd against Tech, it wouldn't be outlandish to see them 4-2. It wouldn't be outlandish to see them 3-3. It wouldn't be outlandish to see them 5-1. If they're the Kansas State team that I think they can beat, it wouldn't be outlandish to see them 6-0. They can be that good. They have that type of ceiling. Now, whether or not they finish the second half of the season 12-0, 11-1, 10-2, I mean, however you want to chalk it up to what you think Kansas State's going to be, they're going to show you what they're going to be by October 23rd. They're going to beat the crap out of Texas Tech. And then heading into October 30th, listen, that's the game right there. That's going to tell you if they're going to continue the rest of the year being that team is TCU, because they're going to play the four hardest teams in the conference as far as actual greatness of a team. Texas might end up being that team. Texas is the last team on their schedule, which they should absolutely savor and absolutely enjoy because I think they can beat Texas. I really do. I think Kansas State can beat Texas. I'm not going to sit here and tell you Kansas State's going to beat Oklahoma or Iowa State. I don't think I'm going to tell you they're going to beat Oklahoma State. But I will tell you that if we're going to look at this Kansas State squad, I have them at 7 or 6 as a baseline. I think they are the 6th best team with playing poorly, honestly. So if they play to their potential, Kansas State's going to challenge for that 3rd place spot. That's just the way it is. I don't think Texas is quite there yet. I need to see them before I'm a buyer on Texas. But yeah, man, listen, don't sleep on Kansas State. They're good. They're a good football team. Now, if they get the injury bug and it shows up like it did last year, that's just some unlucky things, and that strength and conditioning coach probably should be fired, and they probably should go find somebody else. But if I'm Kansas State, if I'm a Kansas State fan, you've got to like what you're seeing. You've got to like what's going on. So I think it's going to be good for Kansas State this year. I think it's going to be a pretty big year for them. But like I said, if I'm looking at it right now, using what I know from the talent perspective, using what I know from the coaching perspective, using what I know from schematic perspective, using what I know from statistical perspectives, Kansas State's the sixth best football team in this league. I think they are better than I think they're miles better than Kansas, Baylor, and Texas Tech all put together. So we'll see. We'll see what it looks like. We'll see how it flows from that point on, and see what it looks like in the second half of the season. And with that, that's my two teams for today. I think Baylor's good. I think they're better than Texas Tech. I don't think they're anywhere in the same level as Kansas State. Kansas State can be in the third place level, or they can be in the sixth place level. They could be the challengers for the number 2 spot. Who knows? It's still talking season. So when proven season starts, I think next week actually. Next week sounds right. Man, it's going to be interesting to see. So that's my picks. That's 7 and 6 on mine. So again, so 10 Kansas, 9 Texas Tech. Oh wait, no, 7. I have them at 7. I can't math today apparently. That's okay. You guys can forgive that. So 1, 2, 3. Yeah, so I got them as the 7th best team. So again, Kansas at 9, Kansas at 10, Texas Tech at 9, Baylor at 8, Kansas State at 7. But Kansas State can finish anywhere from 7th to 3rd. I think they have the potential to be that good or that bad. So Texas and Oklahoma State, I'm looking at you next. And yes, I do have Texas behind Oklahoma State. I'll tell you guys why tomorrow. I'll tell you with my buddy Ian Nickel why I think Texas is a 6 and 6 football team. But I can also tell you why they could be an 11-2 football team. So some stuff there for you guys to look forward to. This is the Major League Podcast. This is Big 12 preview week. So next week we'll start going into some national predictions. I'll cover some national teams probably on Monday. But as far as how it looks, I'm liking the Big 12 this year. I'm liking what they're gonna try and produce and what they're gonna try and do, and probably the last year that we're gonna see the Big 12 as is. And I'll get into that more next week. Kind of let the rumor stuff all happen again. Let all the lawyer stuff all happen all over again. But we'll cover number 5, Oklahoma State, number 6, Texas tomorrow with my buddy Ian Nickel. So give us a listen, and I'll keep providing you guys my Big 12 picks per team. So like I said, for Kansas State, where are all of them? I've got Skylar Thompson. I've got Phillip Brooks. I've got, I say 4, but that might be the only 2. Yeah, I only got 2 for Kansas State, and for Baylor, I believe also just. There it is, 4. I got 4 for Baylor. So for Baylor, it's Tristan Ebner, first team, Terrell Bernard, first team, Jalen Petrie, first team, and Psyche Ika as a second team defensive lineman. So there you have it. I will see you guys tomorrow. We'll be out here again, but difference is I will have my buddy Ian Nickel on the other half of my screen, and we will get everything rolling and golden for you guys. So this has been the Major League Podcast. Again, I'm Jacob Major. Remember, it is at the Major League 3 or at Sooners_B12C. Or if you want to just talk live with me, it's at Jake Major 25. So guys, have a great rest of your day. Don't ruin somebody's 2020. And we will catch you guys on Hump Day. Deuces.